Hello, good evening, all. How are we doing this evening?
I'm good.
Good.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I trust that you all are having a productive week. I know we're going through these chapters very quickly. I'm trusting that we are retaining some of this information and we're not overwhelmed by it. So I'm trying to scale it down as much as possible and only give you what we need for the exam. How are we coping so far? Belisa? Is Belisa there? No, any everybody? Jasmine, are you good? Are you up to date with your readings?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm up to date. I just need to sit down and go through a bit more thoroughly, but I'm good.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so of course we all know that the first homework is due on Friday at 11:59 p.m. And again, I encouraged everybody to complete that first homework, but if you're not available to complete it, please don't try and rush and not get a good grade because there are three other choices. I just recommended that you complete it because more than likely that would be the mandatory question on the exam. But if you're unable to complete it and you perhaps want to complete questions 2, 3, or 4, please feel free to do that. And then at a later date or, when it's coming down to review class, just ensure that you have, all the research required to be able to answer the mandatory question and you should be fine. Okay. But if persons want to complete homework number 1, it is due on Friday, 11:59, and please don't complete it without listening to the recording from the first class. I'm getting a lot of questions and a lot of emails um, for information that would have already been shared. So if you just if you would have missed the first class that gave the instructions and the classwork and all the information that you needed to carry you throughout the course. And again, we may have discussed it, and it's hard to retain all the information at once. So a refresher of the first class will be helpful if you have any questions or concerns. Okay, and if you need further clarification, then please feel free to reach out to me. But there's a lot of good information in the first class um, that will help you understand what is required. Okay.
Can I just get an understanding on one question to help me with my understanding? We are, and that is on that first question, we are using those 3 cases, or we can use any 3 cases?
No, you're using those 3 cases on bribery and corruption from the Eggman group at the back of the book.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
What I suggested, again, I cannot give you the questions that are going to be on the final exam. Okay. So this is why it's not in writing. I'm just saying to you, when you answer that question, more than likely, that's going to be the mandatory question on the exam. I'm just suggesting that you add some Bahamian cases in there. Because the question is always centered around the Bahamas. Does this happen here? Is there any case that's familiar or similar to what's happening in those 3 cases? And so that's why I suggest that when you complete that question 1, that you also do some research on the Bahamas and see if there are similar cases. And of course, we discussed that as well. We saw our politicians being brought before the courts for the first time ever, right? Shane Gibson, Frank Smith, Kendrick Dorset on bribery and corruption charges, correct?
Correct. But
Okay. And
Mr.
then,
Dawson case didn't come up yet, eh? He's still.
I think that's still pending.
Okay.
And then, of course, we as Bahamians, we know that when we go into our government agencies, in order for us to get something done, it's similar to case number 3. They require some encouragement or a tip or what have you, right? So we are familiar with that. If you want your lights turned on right away, tip. If you want this document stamped, tip, right? And so we are very familiar with that scenario. Okay. And I think there are one or two cases. My good colleague and friend that I work with for many years just got removed, and we'll talk about him when we get down to chapter 10 about cooperation with the police. Yeah, he was just removed on bribery charges from the Ministry of Finance. So there are a few cases out there. Okay, so you shouldn't have a difficulties finding that information once you do research. Okay, good, Patricia.
Good. Yes, okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, good. So, do we have anybody that read the newspaper and wants to share?
I did, Miss Bullard. Very interesting yesterday's paper.
Okay, go ahead, share with us, please.
Okay, I have the case. It's called a clear and rank abuse of power. And that's the case with the Supreme Court judge has dismissed court action of Melissa Hall, a former general manager of the Bridge Authority, who sued the body in 2018 by claiming breach of contract of employment. And the judge in the case called Ms. Hall's claim that it was entitled of 3 years notice, this delusional, and a clear rank of abuse of power, adding that it was disappointing that the plaintiff called the then Minister of Shane Gibson to approve this. Ms. Hall brought the action after the Minister administration ended her employment in February 2018 with 3 months' pay in lieu of notice. She had sought more than $600,000 in damages and $600,000 in damages and costs. According to the Ruth Bo Darling, according to Judge Ruth Bo Darling, ruling in the manner, Ms. Hall was appointed a member of the board of the Bridge Authority in July 2012 and was later appointed general manager on December 14, 2012. Her contract ended 2013. The contract specified that her employment would continue indefinitely until either party gave her proper notice in the end. According to the contract, she was supposed to be given 30 days notice. However, the addendum dated April 2017, weeks before the 2017 election, general election, purported to amend this clause of her contract to specify that she must be given 3 years notice before her contract would be terminated.
3 years notice?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, Justice Davabo rejected the validity of the addendum, saying that it does not appear statutory elements. She said that the variation of Ms. Hall's term of employment exhibited gross abuse of power.
Oh, I'm confused. So she amended her own contract to say that they should have given her 3 years notice?
Yeah, apparently she did the letter. Apparently she wrote the letter and wanted Shane Gibson, who was in power then, to sign off on it. The email was sent to him and he signed off on it to meet and discuss, but it never, the government changed and it never got in the law got amended.
Got passed or amended.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
I mean, how I mean, who gives somebody 3 years notice? I mean,
That's right.
I agree. I mean, but of course we know what the real issue is. The real issue is when there is a new government in place, you know, they have their persons to promote. And so therefore, a lot of persons in top positions like permanent secretaries, they lose their jobs or they are demoted, or you know, because the government has changed and their people you know, have to be put on place. So it continuously happens. In fact, I think it happened with the police department, the commissioner of the police, two assistant or deputy commissioners were terminated or retired. And now that the government has changed, they immediately came back into, they were reinstated. They came off retirement and now they are reinstated. And
Right.
so, you know, I don't know if she had won that case, there would have been at least 100 civil servants trying to amend contracts to say that
Exactly.
they need to be given three years notice. So I don't know if it's just the rules of the game and that's how it's played, that when the government change, you get the I mean, nobody should lose their job, right?
Yeah,
And so
I
perhaps
agree.
something needs to be put in place that you won't lose your job, but you're no longer in charge. And so that's what you have to deal with when you work as a civil servant in a high position.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
every 5 years, that's what happens.
yeah,
And so I guess she was trying to get Mr. Gibson to sign that, so if the government, she was already 2 years in, and the government would change, hopefully the government change again before they were able to let her go.
right.
Yeah, so I know something has to be done. Something has to be done so persons don't lose their job. But to say you must get 3 years notice, I mean,
3
come
years
on,
notice.
that 3 years notice, or in lieu of notice, pay, right? In lieu of notice, you must get paid for 3 years.
Yeah, and
That's
back pay.
crazy.
That's and back pay $600,000. Wow.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If she had won that, that would have opened up 10 cans of worms. Yeah.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
government was shut down trying to pay these people with these, and the people would have gotten more out of control with these requests.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, very, very good. Very
Hi,
good,
excuse me,
Melanie.
Miss
Thank you
Bullard.
for sharing.
Thank you.
Hi, Miss Bullard.
Hi.
Hi, did anybody notify you about
Yes, go ahead.
Joey? Did anyone notify you about Joey's message?
No.
Okay, yeah, she put in the group that she will not be able to make it to class today because she had to take her baby to the hospital. Okay?
Hi, I can't hear you any longer. Can you cut out? I didn't hear anything that you said.
You can hear me now? Hello?
I can hear you now. Uh-huh.
Yes, Joey said she wouldn't be able to make it to class today as she had to take her baby to the hospital.
Okay, I don't know. Can y'all hear, because you keep going in and out. I don't know if there's any.
Can you
Patricia,
hear,
can
can
you
you
hear
hear?
the person speaking?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard
Miss
her.
I can
Bullard.
hear you, Patricia.
Miss
I can hear
Bullard,
Miss
she's
Bullard.
saying, Miss Bullard, she's saying that Joey Dean will not be able to make it to class today because she took her daughter to the hospital.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. No other newspaper. Okay, so we also want to be cognizant of our.
Wait, Miss Colette.
Yes.
Miss Colette. I have one. I have one. I have a newspaper clipping. You can hear me?
Okay, go ahead. Yes, I
Okay,
can.
so I read about Terrence Bastian. Terrence Bastian is the general auditor general, and he went to Mayaguana and he did an audit in Mayaguana. Now he's saying that there was a lot of neglected property, properly maintained funds and records, and that the government, I can't remember the correct term, but the government in Mayaguana, they're short over $77,000 right now. And also payment receipts were found, but there was no work done or the work wasn't completed to support those payment receipts. So they're trying to find out where the money went, and someone else to be held responsible for all these negligence and all these misplaced records and all these records with no follow-ups and all of that. And then they're also making a point that there is no safe in the administration complex of Make Wanna. So they're trying to find out what was going on during I think the term was 2019 and 2020. So they're basically trying to figure out what was happening and who was to be held responsible. So that's my news clipping. I went over. Now what questions I have that I really would want to go back and research is who are the persons responsible, who would be responsible for those type of things not being recorded properly and not being done properly. Like who would be held responsible and how would it be able to be fixed, or who
Which
or what
office is this?
this the administrative office in Make One.
Okay, and what does the administrative office do? Is it like a treasury for Maguana? Do
Hello?
they collect money on behalf of the government? Is it this administrative office too?
Yeah, they collect money on behalf of the government, and they make sure that certain fixtures and everything and payments are being made in Make One.
Okay, so there's something called local government, and each family island has a local government administrator who is in charge of that office. So apparently, because of COVID, I don't know if they have annual voting for this administrator or this local government officer. However, they haven't had it because of COVID responsible. But what I want to say about the Auditor General's department, I'm very disappointed in them because nothing ever comes out of any audit that they ever do. And even after they complete all these audits, then they go and get a private auditor to re-audit what they did, and still nothing comes out of it. Because on the last time the PLP was in power, there was 600,000 from the post office, there was $10 million from PHA, there was $6 million from road traffic.
Wow.
None of
Don't
that has
forget urban renewal, 10 million.
Oh wow.
been accounted for, and nobody has answered
Right.
to that.
Yep.
Okay, so until, like you said, who is responsible, until these persons start to be brought before the courts and held accountable, nothing ever happens. So ultimately, that local government administrator is responsible, but from the permanent secretary up, who is in charge of the post office, well, PHA, instead of the government bringing Frank Smith authority and the $10 million was missing, they let the civil servant, who was Frank Hanna. We all should be familiar with Frank Hanna's cleaning company.
Yes, the cleaning company.
Right. So they let his wife bring Frank Smith before the court, and that's how they charged him with bribery. But what should have happened is he was the chairman of PHA, and $10 million went missing. And the government should have prosecuted him because he was in charge, and they did not. Okay, so again, like I said, when the CFATF came in, they had a meeting at the central bank, and they said, Bahamians just law-abiding citizens, because nobody has ever been brought before the court, right? This was back in 2017. And immediately, by 2018, 2019, the Attorney General had said, well, we have 3 politicians plus 84 persons charged with money laundering. But you have to recall that before 2018, money laundering was not a predicate crime on our law books. So persons were being charged with like fraud or theft or minor crimes. So once we got the laws updated, then we saw the charges coming through. And now when persons walk across the court, when you see it on the news, you don't only hear theft or fraud, you hear theft and money laundering, drug dealing and money laundering.
I have a question, Ms. Bullet. So
yes,
if you have assuming that the laws change, and if you have a pending case in money laundering or what have you, would that case be validated now as in the old laws, or would it be suited for the new laws, as in would they be charged against the new laws?
Okay, so let me tell you what has happened so far. A lot of these laws say they are not retroactive, and even the ones that don't say they are retroactive, they are not retroactive. Like Michelle Reckley, of course, we know she was the head of the urban renewal in Freeport, Grand Bahama, and she was bought before the courts. She had 1.3 million dollars in her account, and it was considered unexplained wealth, and she could not account. And so they charged her with fraud and what have you, and they tried to. She started off with about 54 charges, and I think she is down to 18 now because she committed the crimes in 2016 and she was not charged, I think, until 2018 or 19. And so a lot of those charges that they charged her with uh, was struck off because they simply said at the time when she committed the crime, it was not a law on our books. And so I think they had arrested her along with 6 other employees that worked with her at Urban Renewal in Freeport, and they had to let all of the 6 go, as well as reduce the number of charges from 59 to about 18 now. Okay, so
No, that
that's
would have never happened in the United States, right?
no, because they would have made their laws retroactive.
Exactly.
Hi,
In
Ms.
some
Bullard.
cases,
Hello.
in some cases now, when we think about lawmakers, it's really the lawmakers who should be in jail because the unexplained wealth would really be, attribute to like politicians. That's
Yeah,
who
that's
normally gets
unexplained
charged
money.
with, right. So they are not gonna make a crime retroactive when they know they have a pending case, or they know, you know what I mean? And so, and it's not only our government, it's governments around the world. Okay. And um they have state prisons as well as federal prisons, and crime, and the state prison is for like blue collar crime. And so our government, after so many politicians were being brought before the court, in Central Police Station downtown, that's where everybody used to go. But of course, our good MPs can't sit in there. And so now they've created a white collar crime prison, and it's on top of the funeral home, Bethel's Funeral Home on Nassau Street. So you won't get lost in Central with the hardened criminals that have committed murder and armed robberies and stuff. And so they fixed up a nice little prison for us to go to if we commit this white collar crime. Okay, and they know because it's them who's going to sit in there should they ever get caught in their wrongdoings. Okay.
Well, exactly what you say, but it's really frustrating knowing they know the persons are guilty. They know what they did, right? And it's over and over and over again. They keep doing it. It's like a slap on the wrist. You steal the money, you know what you and it's still nothing is being done. The books, you fix the books and people still do it. It's really
Correct. Correct. So we have a long way to go, but nothing is really going to change until we have, and I don't know if it was this class that we discussed, being a lobbyist. Lobbyists are who keep, the government's foot to the fire. The investigative press is who reminds us, and the fact checkers is who reminds us that, hey, you promised this on the campaign trail. You are supposed to fix this. You are supposed to be transparent and accountable. But see, we go along with them on the campaign trail, and there's nobody to hold them to any of the promises that they made. And so we need a group of lobbyists. And yeah, I think it was this class where we talked about, the Lincoln Baines and the Reynard. I can't. Is it Reynard Rigby? Who
yeah.
marched once and then
Henfield.
joined the government. Yeah,
Yeah.
Reynard had Henfield. Yeah,
Henfield.
and so yeah, they did it once, and then Lincoln started his own party, and Reynard joined the government. And so we need persons outside of the government who is not looking for a political affiliation, but who will actually hold these persons accountable and hold these governments accountable. And in the absence of lobbyists, it'll just be a continuous circle. Because if these people, unfortunately, are not watched and audited by persons who are going to say, no, the money is missing, somebody has to go to jail.
Right. That
You
I'm
know,
saying.
like I
And
said,
it's
that
our
auditor
money.
general department have cases upon cases upon cases, and nobody has gone to jail. You get a little bit of reputational risk and slander over the internet, and that's it. Then they sweep it under the rug, and nothing is ever done. Okay,
Because
corruption at its finest.
that's what I'm
Okay, and
saying.
so this is why we're here. This is what we need. We need some persons who are ethical now, to educate themselves and move on to either becoming lobbyists or becoming part of the government. And until then, we'll have the same vicious cycle over and over again.
Yeah.
Get no
Okay,
shame.
go
That's
go
what I'm
ahead,
saying.
McDonald.
I said they don't have no shame. And then too, the case with the former Ministry of Health of Sports lady, the role lady, that her case was in the paper too. I mean, how you could do those kind of stuff? You accepting checks for the contractor, taking the contractor never get the money, the work never get done. But how you could? I mean, it's
Because these people
nothing is
are
gonna happen.
unethical and
Yeah.
nobody, like I said, nobody else. Melanie, all we do is sit down and talk. We are so good at talk and we are so good at meetings. We are
But
not very good at
sometimes people
getting
get
things done.
frustrated though. You can't, you see it being done by the higher ups and whatever. And then you start to do something and then somebody throws spoke in the wheel. You know, it's crazy. Look at Roddy Manka today and or the yesterday with McDonald's.
What was that all about?
He
Ms. Fuller?
apparently three old guys who regularly attend McDonald's and go inside and have their coffee. But after the emergency orders was lifted, they decided to go inside and sit. And the security told them that they couldn't sit down and inside, and it was pouring rain. So they put the old gentleman outside in the rain to get wet. So
they were not allowing anyone in the restaurant.
no, right.
Oh,
So
okay.
Rodney Manka got a wind of it and he went down there, but they let Rodney Manka in, gave him coffee, and he came out. But now today it happened, he went down there again to see what's happening, and they wouldn't let him inside, and that caused a ruckus. The security, they got into a row and tussle and stuff.
Okay.
So he went to help someone, and look, now they being rude to him.
I mean, but was it really help? Because what you're saying is that McDonald's, even though the emergency orders was lifted as a private company, McDonald's can still make up rules who they want to let enter the building or not, or however they choose to serve. And they were not willing to have the people sit in as yet, right?
Right,
So-
because
so
they
So that's
said,
why, okay.
So whether it rain and snow and sunshine, that is their current rule at this time. If you, I mean, the reality of it, you know?
yeah, but they had the new law is that once you're fully vaccinated, the establishment can house up to how many, I guess, 30
They
persons.
can,
But
they
it-
can, but they're not
They can.
obligated
But
to.
it's still at their
Right.
own
Yeah.
discretion. Oh, sorry,
Right.
Ms. Bullet. Lisa said, sorry, Ms. Bullet, in the WhatsApp group, Lisa said that she is in the class, but she's at work and her mic isn't working. So she heard you when you were asking about me and her.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So Jasmine, you're right. They still have the choice to say that we're not taking anybody inside. So he essentially is not correct for pushing his way in and saying
He's
that they
not.
have to accept him because the law is changed. Yeah,
I only
is not.
saw a portion of the video and I was under the impression they were just refusing him, not realizing that they were not letting anyone else in. Because the video could be, if you don't know the whole story, you could
yeah,
misunderstand
some
the
people were
situation.
inside, they were just wasn't letting him in. What the one
No,
cup?
but you
Oh,
couldn't sit. I think you
No,
can
people
go in. No. You can go inside to order and
order and
leave.
come
You
out.
cannot go and sit in.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah, so people were going in and out to order and leave. I think it was that he wanted to sit in.
But rules are rules, man. And the
Yeah,
rules are
which
for
they,
everybody to
yeah,
follow.
but they do have the right to say nobody is allowed to sit in,
Yes, they do.
even though yeah. So anyway, we'll hear about it tomorrow or later on his show. Okay,
yeah.
so very good, ladies. Remember, all as compliance officers, we should be reading the newspapers, keeping abreast of the news. I always encourage persons, if you work in offshore, what works for me, because I deal with what I did is I've subscribed to their news channels, and it just comes across my Facebook feed, and so I don't always read the entire, I think the French newspapers, the Le Monde, and so every now and again I do scroll through just to see if any name was familiar, and I said, Ebony, where do I know Ebony Colby from? And I said, let me put this in our system. So I went and I Googled Ebony, Ebony Colby in our system, and lo and behold, she was in France being,
So
charged with
I
embezzlement
didn't get
of
that,
that
Ms. Fuller.
name.
She was in France being,
No, what I said, charged with embezzlement.
oh, wow.
So I was able to enter that name into my system, yes. And I filed my SDR on Ebony,
Well, then you
yes.
can call it,
Okay,
go
so
Google
it
me.
helped. Yes, Google everybody. No, but seriously, and this is what this chapter talks about. What, how do you know at the onset of the relationship, we world check, right? And then perhaps at review time, we world check and we see if there are any hits against that name. But what happens every night? And remember, I always say that the risk assessment is only as good as the day it's done. Today, Miss Bullet is a law-abiding citizen, but I may, the pandemic has come. Somebody said my mic is dropping. Can you hear me?
Yeah, when you get every now and then it goes really low. You can't hear what you were saying.
Okay, let me try and get closer to it as possible. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It's that you're clear, but every now and again it just go out for like a second or so, and you miss what you were saying.
Okay, and so what I realized is that if persons' mics remain muted until they speak, then that keeps the signal. And so if you're not speaking, could you please just mute your mic? And that may make it clearer. So let me see what happens. Yeah, so the risk assessment is only good as today. I'm teaching this class now, but the pandemic has happened and I need to feed my kids. And so you'll see me being hauled before the courts tomorrow morning because I did some tax evasion or some bribery or some corruption or what have you. And so this is why you need to stay abreast of um, the newspaper who is being charged within the courts. There are cause lists that are out there, and then you need to find out what really happens in your institution. Does your institution have a system that checks the names every night, or is it only at onboarding when the account is opened? Does anybody know at this point? Because I worked at an institution where they simply did not want to pay for the extension for World Check to check every night. And central bank had insisted, that there has to be a workaround. And so the institution was closing down. And so central bank had agreed that the compliance officer could check those names monthly, the high risk names monthly, and that would suffice because the institution was closing. But if the institution remains open, does your system check those names every night to make sure Brittany and Shante and Devonia are not charged, or there are no hits in World Check? Do we even know?
That's very interesting. Oh, that's it. Very.
So
I know
I
for onboarding for sure.
yeah, I would say for onboarding, I'm pretty sure not even on an annual basis. I would say, honestly.
Okay. Okay, but
Well, I
then it
know.
has to be, if your clients are risk rated, if they're high risk, then they have to be checked annually. So that's when you do your client review. If you're medium, then you review it every 2 years. And if you're low, then every 3 years. So you have to check. Go ahead, Rosalind.
I was saying I work at RBC and I know we normally do it during onboarding. Now I know we do have a department that keeps up to date with anybody that's being charged or anything that may come against them, and then they go towards demarketing that person.
Okay, so World Check has, and it's a bit more expensive than the normal fee that you pay. And World Check has a system that checks those names every night. And so every night you would get a hit. Okay, if somebody was charged or somebody went to jail. Now a lot of companies do not like to check for that feature because 90% of the hits are false negative. Okay, but it's that one hit that could possibly save your business, because if you don't know, that the customer was charged, and that same person that I said, in the French newspaper, when I put the name in the system, when I looked at their account, they had already started sending in wires trying to get that money out of the bank. So 4 wires had already been processed before I realized that person was charged in France. Okay, and so you'll find out that would have happened. And so you can reasonably say that, look, we didn't know, but you are required to know your customers. And definitely, if his review date had passed, then we could have been fined, because at review time, at minimum, we should have known that he had been charged in his country. Okay, so I want you to go to your institutions tomorrow and find out, is World Check or another system scanning the names every night? If not, how are we getting hits on these names? Is it only on transactions? Is it only on the transactions that are outside of the person's profile? And then again, find out how your system works. Because again, if you don't have a very savvy system, exact profiles are not entered into the system. Perhaps there are thresholds. And so a threshold may be, give me a hit on every customer. Like, I work in wealth management. So to open an account in wealth management, it was 250,000. So we would say, please alert us on every transaction that had a hit over $100,000. Perhaps in the branch, you may have um, a hit on everybody who goes over $15,000, right? Is that correct? Who was it who just said they, Rosalind? You said you work at Royal, or you're not familiar with how the hits work?
I'm not familiar with how they work, but I know we just do our AML checks once clients are doing onboarding, and then we will get notification
Okay,
from
okay,
our teams to let us know if we need to demarket anybody.
okay. So if you're getting notification and there's somebody monitoring a system that is spitting out some information, but you would want to know how the system works, so you need to know if you should be doing something manually. Okay, if your system does not do it, then you have to do it manually. But like I said, you are required to know your client. And if your client is charged in their country, or you should know. Okay, and you may not know right away, but you are required to know at review time. When you complete that review, again, the review is in line with how your client is risk rated. If it's high, you should be reviewing that client every year. And when you complete the review, the first thing you should do is World Check them, or LexisNexis, and see if they have any hits against their names, if they have been charged, or with any of the 21 crimes that are under money laundering. Then you are to review the transactions and to see if they stayed within their profile. Now, like I said, a lot of companies, they don't want to spend, these systems are very expensive, so they have a blanketed system that may say, in the retail banks, give us a hit for any transaction over 15,000, or any transactions, because persons are now smurfing. And so smurfing is, I'm going to deposit 15,000, but I'll do 5,000 today, 5,000 tomorrow, and 5,000 the next day, which will total 15,000. So systems normally detect a smurfing. But what about the person who is, and if you were in intro, and I told this story where a car wash guy only made 50, okay? So if you have a system that just has a threshold, that car wash guy would have still been outside of his profile. However, the system would not have been able to detect it. Okay, is that clear? Hello? Are we there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Clear.
yeah,
Okay, and y'all can hear
yeah.
me.
I had
Okay.
to unmute.
Okay. Yeah, so find out how the system works and find out if you have to do something manually. Okay? And it's just to protect yourself. And normally, like I said, that's handled by the risk or the compliance department. But as an account officer, if you're managing accounts, you should know how it works and what happens and what balances and checks you need to do in order to safeguard yourself. Okay? Okay, so anybody read chapter 5?
Yes.
Okay, so give me
I
an
did.
I didn't get
overview
to
of
read
what you
it because
read.
I was trying to do the homework.
You say you didn't get to read it because you was trying to do the homework?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so who said yes?
Jasmine, I read it last weekend. I thought we had to do 4 and 5.
I read it too.
Okay, so give me an overview of what you read. Just now, remember now, this is supposed to be discussion based. So let's discuss what you read and let's see how we can develop on that. Because it seems like Jasmine, you're the only one who was responding to me when I asked if you read. Let me see who else. Not only Jasmine and
Miss Bullet, Miss Bullet, I read it too, but you know, it's a lot of reading and it just need to, like you say, discussions. It dealt with a lot of risk, assessing risks and all of that. So I read it as well.
Okay, but was it relatable? Were you able to tie it
Yes.
into what we've learned already? And
Yes,
you understand what needs to be done?
Yes, I realized the further I get into the book, the more I start to understand the homework.
Okay, very good.
Because
Very good. And
it's catching up with the homework, the reading.
right, and like I said, as you go along throughout the chapters, it'll all become clearer.
Okay, why can't I hear nothing?
Okay, that's Miracle. Stop saying she can't
I
hear
can't hear
anything.
nothing.
We can hear you, Miracle. Can you hear me, Gibson Roll?
I can hear you loud and clear. She probably just needs to leave and come back in. It's probably her device.
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
Okay. Yeah, so check your device. We can hear you. I guess she left and to come back in. Okay, what about you, Bakan? Have you been able to catch up as yet? Have you read chapter 5?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to cover all the chapters. I'm reading backwards and I managed to read both chapter 5 and 4. So I know
Okay.
more or less about risk and the AML strategies and how to implement them.
Okay, and you do understand the risk-based approach and when we say it, what we mean.
Yes, exactly. I know. I've studied risk before, so I'm familiar.
Okay, great. Okay, so what chapter 5 goes on to further talk, and like I said, the next 4 chapters speak on risk and the risk-based approach. And before there was a risk-based approach, there was a rules-based approach. Okay, and so there were a list of rules, and it was considered like a check the box, a yes or no answer. Does your company do A, yes or no, or B, yes or no? Does your company do business with PEPs? Yes. Are there controls in place? Yes. but not asking you what controls you had in place, whether you were testing them, whether they are effective or not. Okay. And so when all the laws changed, we moved from, and this was back in 2018, we moved from a rules based approach, checking the boxes without giving explanation, to a risk based approach. Okay. This allows the company to concentrate their efforts on being flexible when, and deciding where to concentrate their efforts. So, do we want to do business with PEPs? Do we want to do business with corresponding banks? Do we want to offer services to companies that offer bearer shares? And all of those services are normally high risk. And if we do offer these services, what controls we are going to put in place to mitigate any risks associated with the high risk services? Or we don't wish to do any business with those type of products and services, and so therefore we don't need to put any controls in place, and we need to document upfront in our risk appetite that we do not do those, offer those services or those products. And we just, when the PEPs approach us and they want to know what I normally do when we talked about how laws are established. And so, of course, we know it's international standard, then Bahamian law, then guidelines from your regulator, and then your internal AML guideline. And so the easiest way to put together an internal AML guideline is to copy from the table of contents of your regulator. And so if you are regulated by the Insurance Commission, you look at the AML guidelines from the Insurance Commission, and you look at their table of contents. And if it says Bahamian Legislative Matrix, you make sure that your policy says Bahamian Legislative Matrix. And if it talks about the various insurance products and services and you offer them, then you include that. If it talks about businesses with PEPs and you offer insurance to PEPs, then you document that. However, if PEPs are not within your risk appetite, then you can just leave that portion out. Okay. So essentially, your internal AML guideline should be a carbon copy of your regulator's AML guideline. Okay. And again, this AML guideline is not a secret. It should be shared throughout the institution. It should be clear. It should document all policies and procedures regarding or related to AML. And it should cover any other policy that's not that where you do not have a standalone policy for a procedure or a product or service that you offer. So if you don't have a separate standalone policy for taxes, then you include taxes in your AML policy, CRS and FACA. If you don't have a standalone policy for PEPs, or it's not in your account opening policy and you offer services to PEPs, then you include it in your AML policy. Okay? And so policies and procedures, again, should be documented. It should be clear. And again, it's not a secret. We don't keep this policy confidential to compliance. We share this with the entire institution. And again, normally this is a very detailed policy. It's very thick. If you just email it out to persons with, your staff members, trust me, they won't read it. One of the biggest problems in the world, I won't even say the Bahamas, is that we just simply don't read. And even if we read, we do not comprehend, we do not understand, and we are too afraid to speak up and say, I don't understand. Explain to me what this means. And so if you truly want to be effective in your entire organization, that compliance is everybody's business. In 2018, we actually added compliance to everybody's job description to let them know that it's everybody's business. We shared POCA with them, the Proceeds of Crime Act, and we let them know the definition of failing to disclose, as well as the definition of tipping off and the fines that are attached to those two charges under the Proceeds of Crime Act, and we let them sign off and acknowledge that they understand and they agree. And we do that at onboarding of new employees. Okay. And every other employee that had not, have probably been there for 25 years, we refreshed all of their HR data or HR information, and we made them resign and agree to understanding, tipping off, failing to disclose, and that they have the awareness that compliance is everybody's business. Okay. Also, in terms of AML training, it's required annually. And before, Ms. Bullitt used to even give, before I was in compliance, I used to even give the compliance department a hard time, and they used to run me down, Ms. Bullitt, you want to do your AML training? You want to do your AML training? And for a very long time, the FIU, they did not have a fine attached, but since again the law has changed in 2018, now there's a fine attached. And so they advertise it in the newspapers, and they say any company that does not have everyone in their company attend annual AML training will be fined $10,000 per day for every day that everybody has not signed.
Miss
Okay.
Bullard,
And like I said, yeah,
Always doing
just a
this.
quick question on that. The annual training that has to be done, does it have to be,
go ahead.
you can hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, the annual training has to
Yes, I
be
can hear you.
face to face. When I say face to face, as in can it be written like an exam kind of thing, or does it have to be some kind of a
No,
session per se?
it has to be a session plus an exam, because like I said, previously I said I used to hear from the regulators once every 6 years, right? And now they have analytics department and relationship managers for each institution. So they call you up on the phone and they say, Ms. Bullitt, please send your training schedules for the year. I would have sent that. Then they say, please, in March, they said, we noticed that you had three trainings for the year. Please send the acknowledgements from your staff. And then they say, please have HR send us a list. So they get a list of all the staff, and they see that we have 33 staff members. They expect to have 33 signatures. Okay. And if there are any differences, they call you out and say, what's going on. In the past, they never asked for the exam. They are now asking, Ms. Bullitt, please let us see the exam that you gave to your staff to test after the training. Again, the board was never had to be trained. The board now is even required to be trained. Okay.
Wow.
So everybody has to have annual training. Your consultants, your third party external asset managers, they ask you, have you shared your policies and procedures with them? And before we used to just say yes, the check up the box approach. Now they said, please provide source document. So they say, how many external asset managers do you have? We have more than 100 in various areas of the world. Okay. And they want to see 100 signatures stating that those external asset managers are aware of the Bahamas AML guidelines. And when they go and act as business introducers on behalf of our bank, that they are aware of what Bahamian law says and the fines attached should they not, follow the law. So we can't say, oh, that's an external asset manager. He in Russia, he don't know what Bahamian law. No, if you are going to act on behalf of a Bahamian institution, you're required to know Bahamian law. Okay, and you are required to. So attached to all of our external asset manager agreements is the POCA and parts of Bahamian law that's applicable to account opening. Okay, and the requirements. Okay, so all parties involved, everybody who acts on your behalf is required to know your internal AML policy.
Ms.
Okay.
Bullard,
Yes.
so funny that you're saying that because I remember because we have to do our AML training every year also. And managers is just used to remind us to do it, but now it's like if you don't meet the deadline, there's disciplinary action for it. So it seems as if the institutions are being fined for real.
Yeah, $10,000 a day. The FIU, if you look in the newspaper by January 30th of each year, you will see the FIU advising all supervised financial institutions. Okay, that's insurance companies, everybody under the gaming board, um, everybody in the securities business, um, the money services businesses, the credit unions, everybody who does not have their entire staff complement sign off will be fined $10,000 a day per person, I think even. Okay, so like I said, I used to hide from the compliance person about 5 years ago, the 6 years ago, until I became the compliance person. I said central bank used to send out a survey, nobody ever answered, right? And the Wolfsburg questionnaire is related to correspondent banking. So if you offer correspondent banking services, normally various banks, when you go and open up an account, like I am, let's say Royal Bank goes to Scotiabank to open an account, Scotiabank will ask for their Wolfsburg questionnaire, right? And the Wolfsburg questionnaire used to be 28 yes or no answers. It's now 200, okay? And they ask you, have you trained all of your consultants, board members, everybody in relation to your business? And if you say yes, like I said, the first time I answered the central bank questionnaire in 2018, and I said, oh yes, 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 yes. Of course, the bank can't say no. The lady called me back on the phone and said, Miss Bullitt, you responded that you have all these policies and yes to all of our questions, but you didn't send any source document. I said, source document? What is source document? Miss Bullitt, you don't know what source document is? She said, I would need to see this policy on taxes. I would need to see this policy on PEPs and bearer shares. And so I said, oh, it's in our AML policy. She said, please send me the section number and the page. And some of those things weren't in there. So we had to go and do updates right away, right? And then she said, have you completed your training for the year? I said, oh, of course. She said, please send me the training log. So what did I have to do?
Yeah, the
Immediately, I
training
had
log.
I had to have a board meeting to train the board. Okay. I said emergency board,
Miss Bullitt,
there's
yeah.
only a board meeting every quarter, right? And I had to run around the entire institution and let them sign. And then after I was crazy for a week sending that to her, she could then say, Miss Bullitt, did you test everybody? I said, of course. She said, please send us a copy of the exam. I said, oh my God. Then I had to send out an exam. And I said, this is effective immediately, mandatory. Everybody must complete this exam. The people thought I was crazy, but the regulator's so serious. And the lady was like, $10 per person that did not $10, $10,000 and $5,000 for this. She was just calling off these fines and saying all these stuff. And I was like, what? You're serious? Really? You mean this? And she said, Miss Bullitt, for falsification to the regulator, all sorts of stuff. No head, but now I know better. I know that they are serious. They are on you. So, like I said, gone are the days when you just, sit down with these surveys, 200 questions, and then talk about yes, 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 and not have these things in place. Child, you'll be going home. You have to fix it, or you'll be going home. Okay, so that's why I say the best way to ensure that you incorporate procedures, look at the table of contents of your regulator, AML policy, and then ensure that every product and service that you offer is in yours. And after I had updated our AML policy, the regulator, they said they want us to do a comparison to the law. And we said, do a comparison to the law. So they said, yeah, could you please hire Deloitte & Touche to let us know, to advise us if anything is missing. And my God, Deloitte & Touche must have charged us $20,000 to tell us what was missing out of our AML policy. And then we had to go and revise that again. So overnight thing. What you were supposed to have is a compliance legislative matrix that tells you like how the entire institution is supposed to stay compliant, and you document which sections of the law is applicable to your institution, and you make sure that if it's in relation to credit, the credit department is aware of all the laws, and if it's finance and it's HR, and so you have a legislative matrix for each department and every law. It's very, very extensive, very extensive. And now that the laws are constantly changing, you have to have all the amendments, and you have to ensure that you are aware what the law says. So there's a compliance legislative matrix, there's a guideline, and they are even checking for deficiencies, so you have to ensure that you have all the sections that are related to your institution. And like I said, you have to ensure that their staff are trained. There's not only a AML risk assessment now, there is a enterprise-wide risk assessment. So each year, I think in June is the AML risk assessment, and every November or October it's the enterprise-wide risk assessment. So that is the risk associated with credit, the risk associated with HR, with finance, and what have you. And the first year it was really, really bad because my institution thought that compliance, they didn't even have a risk manager. They thought that compliance could just meet all these deadlines, and that risk took up my entire job. I had no time for compliance or AML, in 2019 when these risk assessments were due. But the managers of these departments did not feel that it was their duty or their job. They said that's a risk function, that's not my function, that's not a credit function, or that's a compliance function. And we had to, like I said, we had to put that on their job descriptions and let them know that they are responsible to document the risk associated with credit, with HR, with finance, and assess risks with putting controls in place to mitigate that risk. They are the experts. Even right down the policy and procedure, you would find that executives or managers of other departments feel that it's a compliance function. No, compliance is everybody's business. And you are the expert of credit. You are the expert of HR. You are the expert of finance. You cannot expect the compliance officer to complete all of your risk and put all your controls in place and you're not even aware, and then train you. Okay, so it was a whirlwind, like I said, to meet those deadlines in 2019 with the risk assessment for each department. But it had to be done. And the securities, I had dual regulators. So my bank had a securities arm. So we reported both to the central bank and to the Securities Commission. And whilst the central bank does not have so many fines, they give you a chance. And if you are grossly negligent, then they will charge you like $50,000. But the Securities Commission, they send us a letter and they say $5,000 for every day that you do, this risk assessment. The AML risk assessment is due in June. The enterprise wide is due in October. $5,000 for every day in June, past June 22nd, that you don't produce it, right? And we had some of the credit unions that did not produce it, okay? And they reported to the central bank, luckily. However, a lot of them got fined, and even some persons in my class even let go and lost their job because, like I said, they were thrown into the compliance position after central bank started to regulate the credit unions. And they just did not know what to do, and they did not have any help. And even, so Ms. Bullitt still has consultants and legal and people advising me for all of these new requirements, and luckily my company, would pay. Some companies just try and figure it out, and it isn't easy to figure out because the regulator only gives you so much information. They say, you are the Royal Bank of Canada, this is a Fortune 500 company. Surely y'all could pay for some tax lawyers. Surely y'all could pay for some consultants. So they only give you limited information. Okay. So you really have to be information seeking, and you have to say, I need, to either call up my network and get some favors, or you need to ensure that you have the right consultants or the right team with you, to implement the various like FACA and CRS. Of course, in the Bahamas, we have one tax lawyer, that's Ryan Pinder. Okay. More persons are studying. We didn't even have VAT, right? The only type of tax that we had was customs and national insurance. But now, we are familiar with CRS and FACA, and nobody knew what to do. And so the regulator had 2 or 3 briefings, and most of that was about their system and how to upload to their system, not what you had to do and how do you file CRS and how do you file FACA, right? And so if your company did not hire, or send you on training with Deloitte and Touche or the IRS, how did you know what to do? It was a lot of reading and a lot of trial and error. So, we were on a learning curve for a few years. And then that was CRS and FACA. And then all of the laws changed in 2018. And so, that AML policy that been around from 1982, had to be off and updated. And like I say, now everything is being enforced. Before, we said, a lot of stuff in law, but of course there were a lot of loopholes. But now, countries around the world um, got their mutual evaluation and found that they were deficient in many of the recommendations. So it wasn't only the Bahamas. Okay, so around the world, there was a lot of work to do. And again, regulation is very expensive. The systems to go along with the laws and the regulation is also very expensive. So, like I say, in order to stay open, some companies had to take a staggered approach. Okay, and so don't say, oh, well, my company has us at risk, or um, they're not taking it seriously. And it may not be that, it's just that it's very expensive. So this is why I'm sending you on an investigation to find out what are the safeguards, what is happening every night, and if it's not happening, is there something I should be doing manually to protect us? Okay. And then, is it realistic to do it manually if we have 8,000 clients, right? Is it even possible? you know and if it's not possible, then the regulator would have been on the company to have a workaround plan. And like I said, for instance, where as a compliance officer, I was allowed to uh, world check manually the high risk clients, that were only about 20 of them left at the time when the central bank had said, find a workaround if you're not going to pay, world check. But normally, if you're a company that's up and running, they will insist that you purchase a system and have these names scanned every night. But it's good to know you know what is there to assist you. Okay, is that clear? Are we still there? Y'all are very quiet. Miss Bullet needs some
We're listening.
We're here.
We're listening to you.
feedback. Are we still there? Is hello?
Yeah.
We
I'm
will
here.
Sleep
I'm
or
here.
y'all-
We're still here.
Well, I almost fall asleep. Y'all gotta keep me up. I almost fall asleep. I thought I was talking to myself.
Miss Bullard, I have a question. I know I hear a lot
Okay.
about
So
Miss
what does the book say? Go
Miss
ahead.
Bullard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, right. Okay. I hear a lot about CRS and FATCA reporting, but what about CBC reporting? Is it because financial institutions aren't supposed to report that we don't talk much about it?
Um, you went in and out. I didn't hear the last part about CBC. You said financial institutions are supposed to do what?
Right. What about CBC reporting? I don't really hear much talk about the reporting aspect of it. Is that a compliance function for the entities or?
Yeah. Listen, CRS and FACA are not compliance functions because it's operational. there was nobody else in the institution who could go out and learn it. And so they dropped it on compliance. But compliance is supposed to be independent of the business and not operational. Okay, that's the first thing. Second of all, CBC reporting just started in the Bahamas, and I think in the world, or as a requirement in December of 2020 was the first year you had to report on CBC. And what it essentially does is it says is if your business, along with the parent, makes more than $800 million in revenue, then you are to make a report. Okay, so there are 4 requirements, but I think the major requirement that exempted most countries in the Bahamas is that the parent and the branch in the Bahamas combined did not make more than 800 million. And so what you had to do is just register and then send in a nil report. However, if your company did make more than 800 million, with maybe like a bigger company like a Royal Bank or a Scotia, then there is like a bunch of account financial questions that should be answered by an accountant that has to be filled out by the parent, perhaps in Canada, and then submitted. So I would imagine that Royal and Scotia and CIBC's parent would have filled that out.
Okay, so only the parent is obligated to
Because they have branches all around the world. So
right.
I just had to register and put in a nil report.
Okay, so the subsidiaries, are they supposed to send some sort of notification or?
Well, the parent should know. The parent should know that whether or not they make that or not, right? And
Right.
so I sent an email to the finance department in Switzerland, and I said, kindly confirm that it's combined. It's not each subsidiary. It's Royal Bank as a whole makes more than $800 million, right? And so they would confirm if Royal Bank as a whole, and once they said no, you were still required to register. Registration was required for everybody. So you just registered and you said nil. If you said yes, then you would see the form pop up that you would then, if they said yes, then you would then send that to them.
Okay.
Because they're not asking specifically about Bahamas. They're asking about the company as a whole, because many companies, they come into the Caribbean in various jurisdictions to evade tax. That's why it's cheaper to open a branch in the Bahamas. It's cheaper to open one in Cayman or whatever. And so essentially that's what it's a country by country reporting to ensure that, hey, you're evading all these taxes, but you're still making 800 million. And if you were making that 800 million, then you were liable for a tax. And so that's what they were trying to determine. So again, a deterrent from going to these Caribbean countries, and because you are the Royal Bank of Canada and you offer the country 500 jobs, they allow you to, be exempt from various taxes. Okay, and again, like I said, a new tax just started in December. They had one online training, and
Miss Bill, I couldn't hear anything you said. You cut out completely.
I had to listen to it like 5 times. Sorry?
I didn't hear anything you said. You cut out completely on my end.
Okay, so they had an online training. It was, I think it's on YouTube under the Securities Commission about CBC. I had to listen to it like 5 times, and then I had to download the law. I had to read that about 5 times. Then I called the Compliance Commission, and because my entity was closing down, I said, are we still required? We are closing. We have not relinquished our license, but our license, we are not paying fees for 2021. They said, yes, you are required. And I said, I don't understand what I should do. I don't understand. He said, what did your parents say? Your parent must hire a tax lawyer. I said, sir, my parent will not hire a tax lawyer and we are closing. They say, well, in 3 years, when they check you, you'll be fined. So I said, well, I'll be long gone. So it really wouldn't matter. But he then suggested that at minimum everybody had to register. So I registered, and he said, just send an email and let them confirm to you that their revenue is not more than the 800 million, and then you should be fine. So I did that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So again, look for the training on YouTube, and then, like I say, read the law. But as compliance professionals, our offices expect us to know everything. They expect us to read the law and understand. We are not lawyers. If you have a legal background, then fine, you will be able to read the law and decipher. However, your institution is not paying you for legal services. So if you want to do it out of the goodness of your heart, then fine. However, what they should do, if my institution was going to stay open, we have a retainer with a law firm. I would have contacted that law firm and let them give a legal opinion. Okay, so when it comes to new like FACA and CRS and tax laws or anything the risk assessment, even a company that we were consulting, they said, should we make our compliance officer complete the risk assessment? We said, we don't know how effective that will be. They went out to Deloitte and Touche, and Deloitte and Touche charged them $80,000. And a lot of companies paid that $80,000 to Deloitte and Touche to complete that risk assessment for them. A lot of compliance officers had to struggle on their own and try and figure out exactly what had to be done. And again, like I said, we only had minimal guidance from the regulators, 1 or 2 trainings that wasn't very effective. The rest we had to go and figure out ourselves, or you sit down and speak to the regulator. And again, the analytics department was just established. So I don't even know if they knew what exactly was required. But again, as they would have gathered risk assessments from all supervised institutions, about 4,000. And so after they would have gathered all, I guess they would have been able to determine what was deficient, what wasn't, what seems to be, a policy and procedure, or a service that you offer, but you didn't mention within your assessment, and, and analyze all of them. But again, they are on a learning curve, because in fact, I just sent an email last month to the Securities Commission, and I said, we haven't gotten any feedback on whether our risk assessment met your requirements or not. And they say they would have published to let us know whether it did, but so far they've only found the institutions that have not produced it, But when they catch up, I don't know, I don't know if they even know what to do at this point. Everybody's on a learning curve. The law just changed. All I know is that they are enforcing, right? They are enforcing because we are being internationally watched, and they have to prove that they're taking these laws seriously. And if you do not follow the law, there are consequences. Okay? And so no more slapping on the wrist, no more, oh, don't worry about that. That's Miss Bullet, she didn't do it. No, they are doing their balances and checks so that when the FATF comes in to do their checks, that they won't be, fined or be seen as not a good enforcer or enforcement agency. Okay? The book goes on to say, the risk-based approach should include risk identification and assessments on customers, products, services, delivery channels, and geographic areas. So of course you want to list all your high-risk countries. We do business with Russia, we do business with Iran, we do business with countries that CPI index is less than 30. We know that the risk associated with that is that the correspondent bank will not, send their money, or they will tell us they will stop our transfers completely. So what do we do with this book of business that's out of Venezuela or out of Russia? Okay, so they are this type of decisions, because you will hear a lot of institutions talk about accounts that have been opened before 1999 or very elderly clients, and they have to find a way to help them. They can't just close their accounts out. Okay, so you have to make a list. There are some grandfather clauses where you could say this account was opened before 1999. There's nothing we can really do. They're in a country with a CPI index, and this is an elderly person. So sometimes there are situations beyond our control. And again, these, most of the time, you want to put controls in place for the masses. There will be one or two waivers, because we don't live in perfect, one or two waivers that you will implement, and like I said, when I was at Royal Bank, I told the private banking manager that, and I said, there are one or two waivers that you could put in place. And what did I tell him that for? He went crazy. A waiver for this, a waiver for that, a waiver was almost on every file. So then, I had to go back and have another conversation. I said, now listen, now for the very old people or the persons before 1999, we could have a waiver, but we can't have a waiver for the average person who does not want to submit their passport or get their passport renewed. So there is one or two waivers, but your entire book of business, you should not have a waiver on every single file. Okay, because there are mandatory requirements, and the mandatory requirements are required by law, and then there are internal requirements, whereas Royal Bank of Canada says this is what we expect, whereas the law says you only need one form of ID. But of course, Royal Bank is very conservative. They don't ever want to be in the law hands. They want to put in some discretionary measures for human error. And so they ask you for two pieces of ID. Okay? So if they have an account from 1999 and it's review time, they'll say, oh, okay, this Miss Bullard, she 89 years old. She is not going to get a driver's license, or she is not going to, we only have an NIB card. Her passport is expired. We'll make an exception for her. But again, you cannot just make a waiver. It has to be a memo to file. It has to be documented and approved by the manager, as well as compliance, that you are in agreement, you are aware, your customer, and these are the circumstances. Okay, and then when audit comes behind, or the regulator comes behind, you will not get an audit note. However, if there's no documentation, if all of this is stored in your head and you don't no longer work there, or you in another department and nobody knows what's going on with this file, then when audit comes in, or the regulator, you get audit notes. And we all know, too many audit notes, you either lose your job, or too many audit notes, we say, let us see the resumes within the department. Let's see if there's sufficient education, as well as level of experience in this department. If it's not, some people stay and some people go. Okay, so
Look.
please, yes.
Going on what you said, are you doing this per client file, or you're doing this based on other criteria like the jurisdictions? I mean, how are you, or is it both? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, how are you handling this risk assessment? How are you going down the line? We're doing it by client, or we're doing it by jurisdiction?
Okay, let's be clear now. Okay, so there's a country risk assessment, there's a business risk assessment, or the organization risk assessment, and then each client gets a risk rating, right? So there are 3 levels of assessments, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so each customer will have their own assessment. Each file will be risk rated. Okay, so if Patricia and Shane Gibson is on one account, how will Patricia be risk rated?
As a pet.
Okay, is Patricia a PAP?
She's connected to So she is.
Okay, there you go. There you go. And so what if Patricia has her own account outside of the account with Shane Gibson? Is that high risk as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, right. And so that's one of the problems that persons, when they're risk rating, they'd be like, oh, that's Patricia account by herself, but she is still associated with a PAP. So one of Patricia's accounts can be low and the other one high. The relationship should be high no matter if Patricia on that account by herself or with that PAP.
I know that's one of the issues we face now in some of the banks. Um, they want to look, well, customers or even some of the staff, they're looking at an individual account as opposed to the relationship. So just as how you said, Patricia and Shane has a joint, but Patricia also has a separate account. You have to look at Patricia's relationship, not just that one account.
No, correct,
And the taxes should be managed the same way.
correct.
Yeah. I know that's something that I'm
Okay.
fighting with Lynn at my place of employment. It's you have to look at the relationship.
Okay. And so that's a risk on the relationship. Okay. You want to assess. When you assessing risk on a product or service, let's just say cryptocurrency. Okay. Again, we all know that with cryptocurrency, there is an issue regarding KYC. Some exchanges are regulated, some are unregulated. So of course, the unregulated exchanges, some of them they do not ask for KYC, and so there's just a number associated um, with cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of risks in cryptocurrency, and so therefore, it could be Patricia and then Bin Laden attached to this number, right? And so cryptocurrency is risk rated high risk. And so as the laws change and there are updates and more, perhaps you can say we will only deal in cryptocurrency with regulated exchanges or for persons who are attached to a regulated exchange, right? And or as it becomes more familiar, and more persons are using it, then perhaps we could reduce the rate because now we have controls in place. We have had no issues. We've been operating cryptocurrencies for the last 5 years. We only use regulated exchanges, and so you perhaps could decrease the risk regarding that product, or you may have to increase. It may have to remain at high. Okay, so it just depends. So there are different assessments. One, like I said, there's an assessment on the country, identify the products and services that you offer, document them, and put controls in place to mitigate those risks at the country level. Then at the organization level, what is your risk appetite? Identify your products and service, risk rate those products and services. Okay, do an assessment on them. Document what are the risks associated with those products and services and put controls in place. Again, we offer wire transfers by email. Nobody walks into an offshore bank. And so what is the control in place? We have an indemnity against the email. Is a fax and email indemnity that allows us to receive your signature by email and carry out your transfer. What else control do we have in place? We allow two persons to sign. What else do we have in place? We do a callback. Okay, so they are the controls. Okay, and then after that we have risk monitoring. We are going to review these clients based on how we risk rate them, high, medium, or low. Okay, and we are going to complete a client review. We're going to world check them or LexisNexis and Google search them every year, every 2 years, or every 3 years. We're going to look at their transactions and see if it's within their profile because our system only does a blanketed amount, transactions over 15,000. However, this is just the car wash guy who only is supposed to be depositing $50 a week. When we print out his history and we see that he deposited 10,000, because normally all of these balances and checks are post, right? We were already accepted the 10,000. We see it on the account, and then when we do the review, we realize, and this is when we block the account and send the STR. Okay, so we will monitor in relation to the risk rating that the customer gets. And then documentation. Of course, the book talked about the corporate statement of the company, their vision, their mission and goals. Do people even know these anymore? Or are these baseless statements? Are clients, not clients, but are staff aware of what our mission statement is, what our mission is? Do we have it documented? Is it in areas where, in the hallways or in the common staff areas? Or are they like Enron, just baseless statements that nobody knows and nobody ever follows? Okay, and Enron was when Martha Stewart went to jail, Enron was actually charged because of their mission statement and corporate statement that nobody knew and nobody was following. Okay, of their policies and procedures that nobody was aware of. Nobody had ever been trained on it. Okay, so yes, these policies and procedures are very thick, a lot of pages, but in the era and the atmosphere that we are in right now, please do not sit in these positions, because the only way you do not go to jail is if you can explain yourself and speak knowledgeably to what you are supposed to be doing. Okay? Patricia used to do this for 10 years and she showed me how to do it, and this the way they used to do it. So I don't know. I don't know if the system is giving you a hit. How I supposed to know these people gone to jail? How I supposed to know this? You are required to know your customer. Okay? You are required to explain yourself. Okay? With the pandemic and even before that, we had loads of hackers and loads of scammers. Okay? The only way we don't go to jail for being negligent is if we can say our policy states A, B, and C. These are the controls that we have in place. I followed the control. The customer has signed the indemnity email. The customer agreed that they sent this transaction. When I did the callback, I got 2 signatures as per policy. However, unfortunately, they were still able to infiltrate our system and commit a fraud. Okay, I had a person where 2 signatures were required. A relationship manager, it was for $157,000. The relationship manager called the client did not answer, but he was going on vacation and he wanted to process this entry for $157,000 before he left for vacation. So he stamped it, that he called back and the customer agreed, and he got a second signature and they sent the wire. When the customer realized the money was missing from her account, she called the bank and she said, I didn't authorize the wire. And the second signatory said, well, yes, your signature, your callback was made at this and that. And she said, no, there was no callback made. And they called him on vacation and said, the client is calling, complaining. And he said, well, I was going on vacation and, yeah, I am sorry. Yes, I did not call back. And he was let go, $157,000. That second signatory was able to say, the callback is here listed, on the sheet. But a lot of times we sign before the callback is there, right? And suppose he had never written in that he had called back, but we still sign, even though that we know one of the controls in place is that the customer should be called back, and we have to ensure that the email indemnity is signed on the file. We just sign. Anybody familiar with that scenario, Ebony? You understand what I mean when I say we just sign without doing the proper checks and balances?
Yes, ma'am. I
Okay, and
understand.
you understand that what controls should be in place.
Yes, ma'am. Can I
Okay.
share? It's not quite what you're saying, but I have an example of something that I experienced at work as well. Um, a fraud in the making, I guess. I overheard just walking past an office. I overheard a customer talking to an employee and advising them they have a joint facility and they said that the other person on the account was disabled and couldn't come into the branch to sign a document. And they were asking that person if they could have taken the document to the car for the person to sign because, like she said, they couldn't come in. Um, I tapped on the door and I asked the staff member just to step outside for a second. I told him that there's a meeting. Someone wants to say something to them. I wanted to say something to them because the person that she was saying that she was taking the document to the car to sign was locked up in the US. I knew that
Oh,
because I
wow.
had seen it in the paper. So when I told him, I said, no, fine, tell her, yeah, she can take it up, but you're going with her. Because, of course, you don't know this information. Go with her to the car, to that person and ask for an ID. And when he went back in and said, okay, yeah, we can take it to the car, but I have to go with you to witness the signature. All of a sudden she was like, no, 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 whatever. She made up some excuse as to why he couldn't go to the car. So of course that document was never signed. But she was going to possibly forge a signature.
Okay, so it's very good that you intercepted that because a lot of that is happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And like you said, yeah,
Yeah.
there are some people who are incapacitated. And again, you want to offer a service to the client, but you cannot just send the documentation. You have to be prepared to hop in your car and drive
And
to that
go.
person or meet that person in the
I've done it
parking
on
lot.
many occasions. I've done it on
Yeah.
many occasions.
Yeah, yeah. So have I. I've done it as well too because I had a mother who she used to tell me, Miss Bullet, I getting old, but if I send my son alone, he will withdraw all the money, and
Mm,
he kept coming into the bank and he said, oh, my mom is very sick, I have to withdraw. And I said, you know what? On my way home, and they live all the way in South Beach. I said, on my way home, I'm gonna stop to your mom and speak to her because I know she's incapacitated. I went there. She
mm.
only wanted $50. He had 500 on the withdrawal slip. I was like, okay.
But
So
I've seen
yeah,
so much of that recently, and sad. It's sickening. It's sickening.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a lot. Like I tell everybody, my best seller, 70,000 from a blind man. Okay, and she would work late. She would do all the filing. She went above and beyond. But you had some persons who used to sign with their thumb
Yeah.
because or sign X.
Hmm.
She used to steal from disabled persons. She used to and take the difference. I cried, and she was my best seller. I said,
And
"You
they show
trust
up to your top
me.
teller.
You trust in God, okay? You trust
Mhm.
nobody, and she was somebody who I used to draw a poem. We used to go to lunch most days, and she was right up underneath me. So I'm certain that when they started to investigate her, they said, "Boy, you better investigate Miss Bullet too, because them two is
Yeah.
two bees in a pod. So you have to
Guilty
be
by association.
very careful. Yes, yes. And when they come with these transactions, but please approve, oh, I can do the callback. No, 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 no. Do that callback first. Let them stamp and sign that, and then you sign. Because had that person said, oh, I could do the callback and just give me a second signature, two people would have been going home, right?
Yeah.
If that person did not know that the indemnity had to be on the file as well as that callback, she would have innocently been fired as well for negligence. And that's why I'm saying the importance to know your policy and to know what the controls are. Okay? So it says in determining whether a customer requires simplified due diligence or enhanced due diligence, it is necessary for the company to have a formal money laundering terrorist financing risk assessment should be carried out regularly. And it should be mentioned in your risk appetite. Do we do business with high risk countries? And these are the countries. Do we do risk with PEPs? And these might be the countries because some countries, like I said, like Angola and a lot of countries in Africa, they are very I guess the government has been in court for decades, so you want to be careful. Yes, we do business with PEPs, but only for Caribbean countries or wherever, or only for countries where the president has not been impeached or something to that effect. Okay. You want to ensure the customer identification and acceptance procedures reflect the risk characteristic of the customer. You want to ensure the statutory requirements are there. Remember, we learned in intro the 5 statutory requirements: identification, record keeping, training, the MLRO. What's the last one? Monitoring. Okay, we want to ensure that we know all of that, and we want to ensure that we carry those out. Okay, systems and controls are robust and reflect the risk characteristics of the customer. Again, we don't know if they're robust because we don't even know what we have. We don't know what system we have, and we don't know how it works. And I always go back to dirty money and the segment on the Volkswagen. Remember, they had a new system. Nobody knew how it worked, and they defrauded the world. Okay, so please ensure that you know how it works. Not only your system on transaction hits and name hits, but on sanctions. Do you go and check OFAC? How do you know who is sanctioned? How do you know which country is sanctioned? How do you know if, like I said, and I don't know if it was this class that we spoke about last week, where I said, when you're doing sanctions on Russia, some lumber, you could pay school fees and you can perhaps purchase jewelry or property, but you can't purchase lumber because lumber is sanctioned. So how do you do that? How do you determine that? What systems do you use to determine how these countries are sanctioned, or if there's a sanction on a particular good or service? How do you know? So find out what your sanctions framework is within your organization, okay, and how you are alerted, okay. Yeah, so we talked about what systems are used. We want to go on and talk about cross-border corresponding banking. Again, when you do various countries, each country, they have laws, they have country manuals. How do you know what you ought to do when you go into each country? Each, and I think I told you all this story, years ago, the laws was changed. We went to a symposium. It was this class that I told that story to in Canada. Okay, so
No, it wasn't us.
there was another class. Okay,
I'm
so
not
a few
familiar with
years
that
ago.
one.
Hello?
Okay, I think I went out for a minute. Yeah, so we had a symposium in Canada. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we had a symposium in Canada, where, a bankers conference where customers attended. And so we were able to share with them our sales pitch and the products and services that we offered. And about a year or so after that symposium, when we tried to attend it again, we were told that the Canadian laws had changed and we no longer can come into Canada and sell business to any Canadian without contacting a Canadian salesperson. And so what normally happens is that salespersons, sometimes they don't get a salary, they get 15 or 10% of any business that they open. So if they open up a new account for $10 million, they get 15 or 10% of that, which is a lot of money. But in order to protect their citizens, I guess, or their salespersons, they put out laws surrounding solicitation, and so therefore they're called country laws and cross-border laws. So you would need to know what are the laws for you to go into Russia, what are the cross-border laws for you to go into Canada, and for the most part, it just says that you have to connect with a Canadian if you go to Canada. So we were at Royal Trust or Royal Wealth, and we had to stop soliciting in Canada. We had to contact Royal Wealth in Canada for any business we wanted to do with a Canadian. And so what that meant now is if there was a $10 million account to be open, that we no longer got that 15%, that now had to be split in half. Okay. And the same thing with Russia, and the same thing with Brazil and all over the world. So there was a company online that we hired that told us what the country's cross-border rules were. Okay. And so you have to follow that. And a lot of times, they have border patrol and immigration, in cahoots with them. They know. So when you go like into the Swiss border and you have a computer and they ask you, are you here for business? And they ask you, do you have the required permits? And you understand that the country laws say that you cannot solicit and blah, blah, blah. And you have to say you sign and agree. And they actually tell you you must go through, one of their citizens in order to sell any business or what have you. So they are very strict on those cross-border laws. So you are not to go into those countries and think that you can just, sell your sales a pitch to anybody or, any client as you wish. No, you have to follow the law. Again, and big names like Royal Bank and Scotia, they don't take it lightly because no country is going to, have pity on a Fortune 500 bank. They can really slap it to them with the fine. Okay, so and then it's going to be a lot of reputational risk associated with that. So you want to be very careful with that. Then the book goes on and, talks about banking with precious metals, trading and delivery, online banking, stored value cards, e-money, and international wire transfers. And again, on the Wolfsburg questionnaire that I mentioned earlier had changed from 28 questions now to 200. They ask you, what percentage of your business is precious metal trading and delivery? What percentage of your business is marijuana? What percentage of your business is gas and oil? And you will find that if, too much of your business, if you say like more than 25%, they may consider you high risk because all of these are considered, high risk services. And so therefore you want to ensure that if you don't want your business overall to be risk rated as high, you can't offer or deal with customers who are so high risk. And so when you are going through the onboarding and approval process, you can't only consider the risk associated by the client, but you have to say that, listen, we already have 10 Venezuelans and 10 PEPs and some correspondent banking. If we take on any more, this will tip us over the edge. And as a company now, we are walking into high-risk territory. And so sometimes we may not increase our business, or we may turn down a particular customer just because it may take us over our set limits. And you will find that be subjected to enhanced due diligence. And the regulators are now moving towards, if you are high risk, you have to be audited every year. And like I said, audits takes up, much half a year right there. So you'll be forever in audit mode. So they are trying to reconsider that, but essentially that's how it should work. If you are low, you have to be audited every 3 years. If you're medium, every 2 years. Okay. So you want to consider that. It says, while some products and services present a lower risk, no product or service is immune from being used in the laundering process. Okay, so even though, you may say, this service, a savings account is risk, there can still be, people can use the services. They know everybody focused on cryptocurrency and technology now, and so nobody may be watching the savings accounts as much, and so they low risk, and so they may use that as a strategy and try and infiltrate. So essentially, you wanna check all your products and services, be aware of all of them, and not think that any product or service is exempt, or any customer because they are low risk is exempt. Okay. Because like I said, these hackers and scammers, they are very crafty, and these people who money launder, that's their business. So they are very innovative, and they always thinking about new ways to infiltrate the system. And again, we're not nowhere as smart as they are. And so the only thing to safeguard ourselves is, like I said, know the policy is, know what they say. If your institution policy is out of date, you should know there should be a version date somewhere on the policy, and you should see, or on each form that you fill out, there should be a version date that tells you when last this was updated. If there's no version date, ask, and then that should be a requirement. That's the only way you would know. The laws just changed in 18. Is this form from 2003? Has it been updated? Does it have the new laws? Okay. But sometimes, like I said, we don't even know. Okay. The book goes on to talk about assessing delivery risk, with introducers and external asset managers and non-face-to-face relationships. And so, again, when you work in the offshore world, nobody walks into the bank and says, I want to open up an account. All of this is done. We have persons sitting in Switzerland and Russia, all around the world. And so what the central bank and the regulators say is, if you don't meet that person personally, if you are Royal Bank Bahamas and Royal Bank Canada meets that person, somebody that is a non-face-to-face transaction, and you're accepting that business from a third party. And so just like we looked at the methodology when we went online and looked at the country risk rating, and we saw there were like 10 categories in which make up the total the risk rating. They want you to put a non-face-to-face customer as a higher risk. Now, not that overall, because think about it, and like I said, in the offshore world, nobody walks into the bank and says, I want to open an account. Everything is done online or over the internet. And so therefore that category itself should be higher risk, not that the person overall will be high risk. So if you have 10 categories on your risk rating, the categories are normally nationality, country of business, product and service, the amount of money, if you met the client, yes or no. No, then the highest rating, if you give 10 points, it should get the full 10 points. Now, normally, all of those categories are compiled, and then you come out with a risk rating. And normally, most risk ratings say under 30 is low, between 30 and 50 is medium, and anything over 50 is high. But when we get to, I think, the next two chapters, or chapter 7, it talks about risk profiling, and we'll look at it more in detail. Okay, but just that if you do not meet the client face to face, that category on your risk rating should be higher. Okay, and then it talks about assessing customer risk, and one part of it should be conflict of interest checks, and normally that is done with staff members. So you want to ensure that any staff member, there's a right of directorship agreement, or somewhere in your compliance manual or in your code of conduct that asks you, are you the director on your church board? Are you the director on the Rotary board, or any other account that we may be holding? Because we don't want you to be the church secretary and managing the church account, correct? So we want you to disclose. right? And we want, if you join in the PLP, we want to make sure that you're not holding the PLP account or the F&M account, okay? And so they ask you to disclose if you are any on these boards or you offer any services, in a voluntary capacity, just to ensure that there are no conflicts, okay? And then it goes on to talk about assessing geographical and country risk. And of course, we know we looked at the Basel Committee. We saw Transparency International. We are aware of the Corruption Perception Index. And so we can look at how all these countries are risk rated. And again, we know that some countries, just like the Bahamas, it's perceived that we are risk rated high. It's just because our risk rating has been outstanding since 215, 216. So the perception is that Mexico and Russia and Bahamas, all of us are high risk, and people just don't do business with us. But we have to prove it. The only way we can prove it is once this risk rating is completed, because nobody right now is accepting a 2015 rating, okay, in 2021. Okay. And so again, if you do business with the high risk countries, you want to document that in your appetite. You want to list the countries, and you want to list, those specific controls that you have in place to protect the institution against the risks associated with those countries. Okay. We talked about the risk assessment only being good as the day is completed, and we understand that. And we understand that we want to make the risk assessment clear. We want to make it user friendly. We talked about the compliance legislative matrix, pulling out the parts of the laws that are applicable to each, sector of the business. What are the laws applicable to credit? The credit bureau is coming online now. So of course, we'll say section 24 of the new Credit Bureau Act states that all institutions, it's mandatory for financial institutions to, not accept a credit report, but carry out a credit report as of a particular date. So that's the type of information that would be on a matrix. And we would ensure that the credit department is aware of that, with the new law coming on board. And we would put controls in place and ensure that proper systems are implemented and they are trained. How do you get this credit report? Where is it? It's never done before in the Bahamas. Who is going to train the staff? How is the credit department going to know what to do? Okay, with this new product and service being offered, or this new service coming along that the government now says that it's mandatory. Okay. There are different types of risks. There's regulator risks. Again, if both the Securities Commission, and I'm sure the Compliance Commission, Gaming Board, and the Central Bank, they all have an administrative policy, and administrative filings and policy. And on that administrative filings policy, it tells you, 120 days after the beginning of the year, or ECPs and attestations must be handed in. And if you don't hand it in, dormant accounts must be filed by February 28th. And so there are a list of regulatory requirements by each regulator, and supervised financial institutions must meet these deadlines. If they don't, they suffer regulator risks, and they can, if they're fined too many times, then they could be subject to a withdrawal of license. There's legal risk, exposure to litigation. Of course, there's reputational risk, and I think it was this group that I told the story. I was at Royal Bank Wealth Management. We were very profitable, but we were being sued, and even though we had high revenue and we were very profitable, there are 5 entities of Royal Bank in the Bahamas. And so the trust company closed down in order not to suffer reputational risk, because we were being sued by the French government. Okay. And so that's how serious reputational risk is. And along with that, over the years, many persons have been dragged before the court. I remember a lady from one of the branches. She sat next to me for 2 days crying. She had a $25,000 difference. You know, me and a coworker. I was in internal control then, and so they bought all our work up, and they said, "Miss Bullet, turn our work upside down and find this difference. 25,000. She's a young girl, newly married. She just had a baby. She can't go to jail." And so I put all my work aside, me and my coworker. We went through all our entries. I pretended to be the customer. My coworker pretended to be the teller, and she sat next to us and cried. And we bought her lunch, and we was praying for her and everything. And then 2 days later, we saw a handcuff being drugged before the court, saying they find the money in a hole in her backyard. And I was like, I cannot believe I wasted my 2 days praying with this girl. In her
Wow.
lunch, and
No way.
No,
yes,
wow.
No
the
way.
whole 25,000.
She was crying
Wow.
because she didn't want y'all to find
The
out.
whole, it was in her. After we pray, yeah. After we pray, she got convicted. Yeah. And she turned herself in.
You should have had the prosecution to call you as a
She was
witness.
so innocent. She was so innocent. Yeah. So
Wow.
anyway, yeah. So like I say, and Royal Bank, like they never show up to court, and many banks, you'll see initially they're getting dragged before the courts, and then that's it, because there's so much reputational risk is more costly to pay legal fees to prosecute these people. So a lot of times courts, the banks just don't show up because that sets a bad name, and the customers say another Royal Bank employee, another Scotia Bank employee, another employee. You know what I mean? And so it could cause a bank run. And so a lot of times banks just don't show up to court. However, theft is now under money laundering. So the banks may not have a choice because the prosecution office has to go through with that charge on money laundering. So if Royal Bank doesn't want to show up to court, it may be made mandatory. You see what I mean? They may have to now suffer the reputational risk because there's a separate charge associated with that theft charge now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
So, Ms. Bullard, question. They found the money, right? But they still locked the lady up?
But she still steal it. Was the money supposed to be in the bank or in a hole in your backyard, ma'am? What you talking about?
I know money.
Wouldn't that be reputational risk?
How did money
But she didn't try
get out of the bank, miss? How? How $25,000 get out of the Royal Bank in somebody's backyard?
She told
From you
them
put
it
that
was
in your
there,
purse,
or they
you under
discovered it.
arrest. Correct? You don't
Did
even have
they
to walk with the
discover
bank.
They
Hello?
discovered, told them it was there.
Okay. Y'all agree?
Well, I have a question, please. Hello.
Go ahead.
I know you said sometimes the banks don't like to show up to court, and you talked about the reputational risk. But whether or not they show up to court, it's already out there that an employee of, for instance, Royal Bank would have been charged or found stealing or whatever. So the reputation is still, I'm trying to stress, to me.
Yes, it is. But okay, so yeah, but could you imagine that going through a trial that takes weeks and every day Royal Bank being in the papers? So that's why you get the initial charge, right? But they normally don't follow through. I don't know if it's changed now, but in fact, it may have changed because there was a lady out of the Spanish Wells Commonwealth Bank, and she was charged with, she stole $30,000, and she was charged with theft as well as money laundering. However, she pleaded guilty. Her family also agreed to pay back the money, and so they dropped the money laundering charge and gave her 6 months in jail for stealing.
Can I say something, Ms. Bullard?
Go ahead.
When I first joined the bank, I never understood why the bank felt as if that was reputational hazard, because as a customer, if you have employees that are thieving and you're not persecuting them, that raised concerns for me as a client. So now they do jail them. Like if an employee thief, $1,000, you go into court. Because that's more reputational risk to the clients on the outside looking in. If you allow your staff to steal and don't prosecute them, what else you allow to go on?
No, ma'am. They don't know. See, the thing about it, if it happens once, they ain't gonna remember. But if you keep hearing Royal Bank employees stealing every week, you can say, boy, them people, the people that's done say the bank is thief. The bank employees is thief. So that's why they just don't show up.
And not because it's not in the news or in the newspaper means it's not going to court either.
Right. Anyway, we'll see what happening now that there's a money laundering charge associated with it. Okay, so let's go on. Concentration risk. So we did business for a bank out of Antigua and Barbuda, and I think I always talk about this. And they had all assets with the bank in Nassau. And listen, if this bank in the Bahamas fails, this bank in Antigua and Barbuda fails because all the eggs are in one basket. So immediately, I think they had like say $200 million with us, send $100 million to another bank to avoid concentration risk. Okay, so we can't have all your eggs in one basket because if, like I said, if we fail, they would have failed. Yes?
Okay, one more time. I didn't get that.
Okay, concentration risk, all your eggs in one basket. So they had the entire revenue with us, with one bank. And so we were advised to let them know that we could not hold the entire $200 million. So
why?
Because if our bank failed in the Bahamas, then that means they would have lost the entire $200 million and they would have failed.
Okay. I got that.
You see, so they said they consider that 20 in one bank. Because if that bank fails, you lose everything, right? And then bank closed down in another country. So they made them withdraw half of the money and put it in another bank. So if we fail, then that means they still had $100 million somewhere else, right?
Okay. So they wouldn't have to face. Okay, so they wouldn't face.
But if we failed and they had all the money with us, they lost everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So concentration risk. And then financial risk, the cost of defending a charge of money laundering. So, of course, you all know Wayne Monroe ain't available no more, but Lucille must have gone up. He always wins on a technicality. So his price probably double now that Wayne Monroe is the minister. So y'all better don't get in no trouble. I don't want to see y'all being hauled before the courts. And can't pay these fines.
Before the court anymore, you forget it.
Oh yeah, they still being able to see y'all on TV no more. We want to read the list. We want.
Yeah, right. It's not hard before you got
see your name in the newspaper. Okay, just be reading every day as compliance professionals, correct? Right. Yes, and it coming across, of course, the Bahamas news because our Facebook feed. So you want if you want to see you on Facebook, since they stopped that walking across the screen. Yeah. Okay, so any questions or concerns? Any feedback? No? Yeah, y'all was here tonight?
We here.
Yeah,
you're here. Okay, talk back to Miss Bullet and give me some feedback. Let me see, Candy, first of all, a lot of y'all I don't even know. And this is week 5. So y'all please don't report Miss Bullet for not giving your participation points. This week 5.
I get my newspaper point today.
You got your newspaper, your name on the list. Let me see who else on this list. Patricia, Ebony, Melanie, and Devonia.
Okay.
That's who's on the list.
I have a networking thing, but I didn't stay to the whole meeting, so I can try
one
again.
person who attended who get there. Sorry?
I didn't stay to the whole meeting for my Rotaract. I'm actually becoming a member of that Rotaract, but I didn't stay to the whole meeting, so I have to try it again.
Okay, try it again and come back next week. And I don't want all of us to show up in the last class and 10 of us have attended our civic organization. Our last class, I think, is December the 11th, only one person will be able to share on the.
He left.
Yeah, it looked like she got kicked out of the
Yeah,
class.
she got bumped out.
Yeah, I think she got bumped out.
Ms. Bullard, you have me down for Kiwanis, right?
She got
She's
bumped
closing
out.
in.
Yeah.
She's back? No.
So how much the Kiwanis thing is? 5%
5%.
as well?
5% for the newspaper, 5% for the Kiwanis, for the civic organization.
So I
Can
think I'm
someone
gonna
send
try
me-
that next weekend.
Can I get an invite for the Kiwanis or the Rotary?
I guess if anyone know of any coming up, they could probably put it in the group chat, any links or anything.
Yeah, please.
If I
Yeah,
come
so-
across, what you can do, I don't know who that was who asked, but if you just search for them sometimes on Facebook, they have upcoming meetings, links and stuff like that.
I did that
Okay.
yesterday. I searched yesterday like that, and I didn't see any like meeting, pressing meeting
No?
or link. No.
Okay, if I come across
I
any,
did the same.
I will definitely post.
Okay,
Usually,
I'll post it. We have my particular branch. We have it every Tuesday night at 7. We have an intra club right now as we speak that I was not able to attend. So that's where all the clubs in Nassau are meeting right now. But my branch is on Tuesdays at 7.
What
Okay,
organization is that?
That's Kiwanis of New Providence.
Okay,
Yeah. And then,
okay, yeah, I
and
did
then-
Kiwanis last week.
and then Kiwanis of Fort Montague guys, they also have a meeting every Tuesday at 7 as well.
Mhm.
So look like
Okay.
Tuesday is the day for the club meeting.
Any Toastmasters? Any Toastmaster meetings?
Toastmasters, Healing Communicators is have their own on Tuesday at 6. And then Pinnacle Seekers, they have at the same time as our class. So that's the one I'm joining, but they have at the same time as our class, so I have to wait on my initiation.
Okay,
Tuesdays are-
Bakan, have you been able? Sorry, Bakan, have you been able to find any meetings? Are you aware of how to get the 5%?
I need to rejoin Toastmasters. I haven't
Sorry?
been to- I need
So
to rejoin.
No,
Let's-
I'm asking Bakan.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay.
I wanted to join Rotary Club, but I haven't figured out how to apply to become a member. So if anyone who's a Rotary member could help me out, I would be very happy to hear from them.
A Rotary Club, Rotary After Dark. I think I can't remember exactly where they meet. I'll get back to you on that, but I think they meet every Monday. I'll get more information on it for you and I'll put it in the group.
Thank you
Bakan,
so
are you
much.
in the group?
Sorry?
The WhatsApp, are you in the WhatsApp chat group?
Yes, I am.
Okay, okay.
I don't think I am. So can somebody add me, please?
You can put your phone number inside the chat, please.
Chat. Okay, I can do it right now.
Ms. Bullard, do you
Okay,
have
Alfreda, you have a question?
Not a question, just a club that I attended this week. Yeah, I've been going to Toastmasters Club 7178 for a while now. It's a club that I am planning on joining. So yeah, I attended the meeting Tuesday. Yes. And as usual, it was very interesting, informative. You always learn a lot. They had 3 speakers on. One dealt with a new reality, the other a girl activated, and the other speaker talked about a journey that he was on. So yeah, I'm going to become a member of that particular club. So that was my my club meeting for the, I guess, week.
Okay, and what was it?
There were 3. Oh, you mean the topic, the theme for the night?
Yeah, or
Oh, the theme was,
some guy talked about the journey that they were on, and that's it. So explain to us
oh,
what
sorry.
happened in the meeting.
Sorry. Okay, so the theme for the night was Let's Be Real. They had 3 different speakers. The first speaker spoke about a new reality. He basically talked about the 4 agreements, which was based off a book. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but it was basically saying, you know, you need to be impeccable with your words, don't make assumptions, don't take anything personally. I can't quite remember what the 4th agreement was, but he basically went into each aspect and talked about how we could apply those to our everyday life. The second speaker, Linda Clark, she spoke, her topic was a girl activated. And she basically talked about females in the sporting arena. And she talked about how a lot of females aren't really involved in sports. And she gave some of the reasons why. Sometimes it's because of the areas that the events that take place, or, you know, it might be transportation issues or whatever have you. And she basically talked about how, you know, some of the benefits that females have, which is based on studies, some of the benefits females have who participate in sports. The third speaker, he talked about the journey he was on, and he basically talked about his experience as a new Toastmaster and how he, you know, he said that he never held any leadership positions in the working environment, but in Toastmasters, he basically was, you know, encouraged to excel or to participate in leadership roles. And, you know, he spoke about how he became the sergeant at arms, how he had to get out of his comfort zone by having to speak at each meeting and, you know, planning events and whatever have you. So he just basically spoke about his journey, and that was his journey becoming a new Toastmaster. So yeah, it was interesting.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alfreda, for sharing. Okay, Candy, give me some feedback, because I don't feel like I know you well enough, Candy, and we on week 5.
Okay, I missed probably about 2 classes. I did not attend any civic group meetings, but I am a member of Toastmasters. I just need to rekindle my membership. But I want to share, I did went on a Zoom. That was yesterday morning. It was, well, actually my supervisor, she referred that I go on it for her. But anyhow, the Zoom was about the impact of ransomware on the financial crime compliance. So that's the Zoom I went on yesterday morning for about 2 hours. Basically, in a nutshell, it was explaining to you new trends of cybercrime, and how to look out for different, I guess, methods for cybercrime attack for corporate businesses and stuff like that, and crypto-related crimes. What else? And how to control potential, and regularize your IT department for cybercrime. And yeah, that's basically it. They were showing you steps, actually, how to protect your company, how to mitigate, and how to eliminate money laundering and risk. Yes. So
Okay, great, Candy. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so now when you join Toastmasters, please invite some of us in this group with you, and so they can get their 5%, and you will be covered. Okay.
yes,
So once they
I'm
say
gonna
Candy
find out.
invited me, you will be covered.
Okay.
So Miss
Okay,
Follett,
great. Thank you so much.
Miss Follett,
Yes.
so have I gotten my 5% for being in Kiwanis? A member of
Have you
Kiwanis?
been to the meeting since the class started?
Yes, I done meetings.
It was. I have somebody's name down for who on last week Saturday.
Last week Saturday.
Who shared with us? Was it Ebony?
I
Who
shared
has
on
their 5%
Kiwanis.
already?
Me should be Kiwanis and my newspaper.
Right, it was Ebony, but I have somebody else's name next to you, Ebony. I thought it was somebody else as well.
No, no, no,
Okay,
no,
so
no.
that's
That's Ebony.
okay. So right now,
Miss
I
Bernard.
have I have Alfreda, Candy, and Ebony, and I just waiting on Candy to invite us to Toastmasters. Okay.
Miss
Go.
And then we
Yes.
covered, and then we covered. What?
Once, no,
The
no. Candy
Toastmasters.
has to invite, and the persons have to attend and come and share.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I.
Miss
But
Bernard.
matter is it in person or virtual?
I have
It's
the
virtual.
final first of it is because I haven't been to meeting. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I haven't been to meeting. Since this class started, I have to rekindle my membership. And it's a closed Toastmaster group on our job. It's the Legal Lights.
Oh, okay. So you may not be able to invite.
Yeah, because that's a
outside
private
from the
charter.
school. Oh,
Well,
okay.
Let
Okay.
me just say, Toastmasters Club 7178, it's via Zoom. And they basically said that, guests invite persons. So I could put the day and the time in the chat and come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Alfreda, thank you. Okay, Brittany, you want to speak? Go ahead.
Okay. Last night I got to attend the Kiwanis Club of Fort Montague. They had a guest speaker, Mr. Ryan Pierce. He's part of I think it's the aeronautics department at Bahamas Air. And he spoke about a lot of different airplane facts. He spoke about a couple of different engines. The reciprocating engine, which is similar to a car engine, and these type of engines, they operate on small planes. And then turboprops, which are older jet engines. The wheels of the plane themselves, they operate independently. And the only thing that really controls the wheels are the brakes. And then the plane itself is pressurized, and that's to help passengers breathe and to feel normal, because as you go higher in the air, it becomes more difficult to breathe. And then pilots, a lot of the training that they undergo, it's memory intensive. So for example, Captain Sully, who landed the plane on the water a few years back, he actually had to remember what to do, because the pilots, when they're in emergency situations, they don't read from a manual. They actually have to remember what to do. And then they're retrained every 6 months. And then co-pilots are actually considered full-fledged pilots. So the pilot who's assigned to the plane would fly the plane for a time, and then eventually the co-pilot would take over because you don't want one of the pilots getting tired or too tired to fly the plane. And then a fun fact that he gave, or a helpful fact, I guess, is that in order to get better rates when it comes to flying, it's best to travel midweek. And there are also less crowds when you travel midweek. And then the black box of the plane that receives all the information, if there were to be a crash or some form of emergency situation, is actually, the color of it is actually orange. And then it's actually split into several different boxes. So it's not a single box. And those are just some things that I found kind of fascinating about this talk.
Okay, very interesting, Brittany, and thank you for sharing. And we always looking for that black box, but now we know it's orange. Okay, so very good and very extensive training every 6 months. And here we are complaining about AML training annually, right? That's less than 30 minutes. So I hope those pilots are paid well, because it sounds like a lot and a lot of risks that they are taking on. Okay, and so again, and they must have a compliance officer checking to make sure that they are the training is administered and it's robust. I guess that I know they are now after one pilot, I think used the plane to commit suicide. They implemented mental health checks because my friend who was a pilot had to go and get a psychiatric evaluation, I think, as well, every 6 months, and a physical and an eye scan. Okay, and so there has to be a compliance professional checking to ensure that institutions are um, not licensed if they don't get all these various balances and checks done. Okay, so very interesting, and thank you for sharing. Okay, any other questions or
Yeah.
concerns? Yes.
No, I just um I attended. Oh my God, my internet connection is unstable.
We can hear you though.
Oh, you can hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear
We
you.
had Kiwanis meeting yesterday. Um,
Mhm.
we had who was it? We had Reverend Angela Palacios as the presenter yesterday, and that was about inspiration and motivation during these difficult times. And basically, it was like just really focusing on yourself, your mental health, like jotting down like things that you enjoyed and really going through and looking at whether in this day and time you're able to do those things and how important it was that you take the time out to do these things that you enjoy. Like we had some people saying they like to read, some people like to wine out with a glass of wine, some people like walking as in exercising, having that alone time to gather their thoughts and get in the right frame of mind before going to work and doing different things like that. So basically that's what it was. And it was very enlightening because like if you really look at it, it seems as if there's not enough hours in the day to do just a lot of basic thing, much less do things that you enjoy to yourself, for yourself.
And I agree 100%. Jasmine, hi. I think
Yeah?
we may have lost Jasmine. Are you still there? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And we not practice going from war to war to war. 8 hours at home, 8 hours at work,
Yeah.
and 8 hours for rest. But of course, we never get that 8 hours for rest. But at least once a week, please put the computer down,
No.
put the phone down, and rejuvenate yourself. Because you will find as you get up in age, your body becomes very tired and a lot of if you're going to school and work and husbands and families, please take some time for yourself to feel good, to rejuvenate yourself, and to just get away and take a break and do whatever you like. Okay, and I say this every week and I mean it, because I don't want this to only be talk. I want us to live it, because I've seen that the key to passing this class is organization. Yes, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of reading, it's very comprehensive, but it's achievable. And if you relax and unwind, you will be able to retain. If you feel good and if you're not rushed, a lot of persons sit in the exam and say, Miss Bullet, I just went blank. So in order for you to not go blank, try and give yourself some time. Like I say, you speak to your families and cut some deals and make them promises that you will fulfill at a later date if they work with you. Because like I said, you made this investment. You could have gone on a vacation. You could have bought a instead. So I want you to get 100% return by retaining this information and passing this exam and applying this into your institutions. Okay, so please get some relaxation and unwind and time in there for yourself. Because a lot of times we don't. Okay. And I promise you all of that will be beneficial to you.
Yeah, but that's
Okay.
easier said than done, Miss Bullet.
Yeah, but guess what, Jasmine? To go to school and to work is hard. So if you here, you over one hurdle, you could get over the next. You could just stop some stuff and you know, or make some other arrangements. If you could afford to pay somebody to watch the kids, so you could have one day to yourself. Pay somebody to clean your house, or I'll get a young, like my daughters, they do anything for like $10 and $15. They available. They speed in my sister's house cleaning, washing, cooking, baking, doing all sorts of stuff. So find some young teenagers that need like a pair of tennis, and or minutes. My daughters work for minutes sometimes, and so on a particular, when I can go to work from 9 to 5 and come home and cook and come home and teach. So my daughter will have minutes on. I schedule everything for payday. I say on payday you will have $10 minutes, and she's be excited, and she know when my payday is before me. So there are ways, and because you might have a lot of disposable income, but there you get, do some favors, help somebody with a project, and then let them help you in return. Use the barter system, but find a way, and cut some deals with your significant others. And in fact, I had like 2 husbands come show up to class, and I said, sir, can you please pick up the children from school for the rest of this course for Miss Bullet, not even for your wife, for Miss Bullet, because I had one lady rushing, trying to take a lunch hour at 3, rushing back to work at 4, rushing back to class, and she just couldn't focus. And I said, when she finished,
Yeah.
this will be beneficial to the family. So, I spoke to him. I said, please, so like I say, if you have somebody that helps you, just try and rearrange the time for right now, and pay them back in whichever way you could when the class is over. Okay, but you will need help if you have a family, and you have to have your family
Yeah.
understand, especially if you have the small kids. Okay, but like I say, just think
Yeah.
of
Which I do.
think of some ways, and get some help, because it's not going to work with the baby sitting on your lap in the middle of the class, or somebody expect waiting, the children waiting on dinner, or like on the days when I have class, if my daughter doesn't cook, when she was younger, I just, we ate out, or I bought home takeout, or there was a good lunch vendor. I used to work at Royal Head Office for a while. Whatever I ordered for lunch, I ordered extra food for dinner, so there are ways, around it, because you may have
To
husbands
make it
who
work.
cook. Yeah, there are ways to make it work. Or fresh market, you could go there and buy a whole chicken, a whole piece of macaroni, some rice, or some salad, or whatever. There are ways to make it work, and I promise you, you will find it beneficial. Okay, but get some help.
Yeah.
Get some help. Okay, so I won't keep you any longer. If there are no further questions or concerns, we'll do this again on Saturday morning.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
good? Okay, so have a good evening. See you all on Saturday.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.